If you're a professional man who's overweight, exhausted, tired of starting over, you need to watch this video. I'm sharing the 5 things that kept me stuck at my heaviest weight and how I finally lost the 60 pounds to regain my confidence and energy. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button because I'm making a new video about weight loss for men every week. I use these strategies to lose 60 pounds in 8 months and kept it off for 13 years, and have helped dozens of men just like you lose up to 60 pounds and finally escape the yo-yo dieting cycle. If you're tired of constantly losing and gaining the same weight, I want to help you get to your healthy self without giving up the foods that you love. The first problem that you need to recognize is that you need to start walking every single day, and that is especially if you are someone who is exhausted after work and you're sitting most of the day and your weight is just keep climbing up. And it's not about just being active for 5 to 6 hours per week, but it's also about like plus 100 hours. So it's more about a combination of walking. For example, if you're going to work and you're taking the car, instead you should try taking like steps. If you are living like closer to work, and instead of taking the stairs, you should just taking for walks. And maybe before you going to work, you are counting your steps. For example, if you need to be in a calorie deficit of 300 calories to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight consistently through the diet, and then you also have 8,000 steps every single day you need to accomplish to be in a 30 calorie deficit to lose even more, and you sustain that over a whole week, then you're losing 2 pounds. In order to lose the weight, you need to hit the daily target of 8,000 steps, and it's more about just being mindful of downloading something that's called Step app. And the more you are being mindful of losing weight with walking even more, it's easier for you to accomplish these small tasks every single day. And it's not only about for fitness, but it's also for about weight loss, having more energy and controlling your appetite. So if you really want to lose more weight and get more energy, it's also about just taking small action. Because if you're going to the gym like 1 hour every single day, that's good, but what are you doing the next 13 hours of your day? So it's about creating a big calorie deficit and sustaining that so you're able to lose the weight. If you want to lose the weight for good and become the most healthiest version of yourself, just like you saw with me and my client transformation in the beginning of the video, there's a link in the description, also in the comment section, where you can apply for coaching with me, and we'll see if you and I are fit to work together, and we'll build a game plan together. The next problem that you have is that you need to prioritize protein in every single one of your meals, because if you are at the point where you're constantly hungry, your craving hit every single night, and you are not able to stick to your diet, even though you are in a calorie deficit, you're just not able to lose weight, because to lose weight consistently, you need to be in this calorie deficit. And higher protein diets, for example, 45% of your daily calories come from protein, helps you stick to your diet in a way that you are not reducing the cravings, and it's also helping you build more muscle and losing fat even faster, even when you are not working out in a gym. So I recommend that you should is to get 45% of your daily calories come from protein, is a high quality protein source from, for example, whey protein. Is you could put 60 grams of protein in your shaker, 400 grams of skimmed milk, and that is already like 50-60 grams of protein. And then you also have lean chicken breast, you have salmon, eggs, tuna, lean ground beef, it could be quinoa, it could be, for example, there could be a lot of protein sources that I can mention for you. But it's also about having, for example, combining it with carbs, because if you're combining it with carbs, you are feeling fuller for longer, so the energy that is going to be released is released slower, and the amount of carbs should be, for example, whole foods, like it could be whole food pasta, whole food bread, because there's more fiber in it, and also combine it with more veggies, because veggies is like low in calories, high in volume, so you feel fuller for longer. And also drinking more water, 4-5 liters of water every single day, because by applying this tip, you're going to feel less hungry, you are building more muscle and building more for example, energy levels. The third mistake that you're making is that you are just trying to lose weight but not getting leaner. And if you are constantly for several weeks or several it could be several years you've been doing random workouts with going to the gym and you're using light weights and you're going like 1 hour on a treadmill and you're just feeling depleted, exhausted, and you just losing weight and gaining it back. It's the reason why that you are not seeing the results that you want, because if you really want to become more lean, what that specifically looks like is having a beautiful like body where you have broad shoulders, a small waist, and you have big arms, big thighs. And this, if you something that reminds me of like the superheroes from Marvel movies, where you are focusing on having strength training 4 or 5 times in the gym every single week, and you are starting out, for example, with the shoulders because you want to build wide broad shoulders, and the shoulders have 3 different areas that you need to put your focusing, and that is, for example, military press that targets the front part of the shoulders, and then you are progressive overload. That basically means that you are constantly increasing the amount of weight, but you also need to study that you are targeting the right muscle group. And then you are having 10 to 12 reps, and you are trying to hit that like 1 to 2 reps before failure. But the first set is just one more set where you get some blood flow out to the muscle, and you want to have a good mind-muscle connection where you're feeling that you are hitting the muscle. Then you wait 60 seconds, and the reason why you're waiting 60 seconds is because if you want to build more muscle, you also have to create an environment where there is the perfect stimulus for you to break down the muscle tissues, because if you are having no intensity when you're working out, you're not building as much muscle mass, and then you are trying to increase the weight with 2.5 or 5 kilos and still be able to hit 10 to 12 reps. If you're hitting 1 rep before failure where you're not able to do it anymore, that's a good sign that you are pushing yourself. And then you wait 60 seconds again, and then you try to increase the weight, but sometimes you're not able to do that. And by always increasing the weight and typing into your notebook that what you're doing with the reps, you always want to try the next week, seeing if you're getting stronger. And sometimes if you're getting stronger, it's also a sign that you're getting more muscle mass. And then afterwards, you're going over to some dumbbell shoulder press where you're targeting the front part of the shoulders again. And it's something that's called compound movements, where in the beginning of the workout you have most energy. You want to utilize the energy to target the muscle groups that is like bigger, because compound movements just takes more energy and you're targeting both more muscle groups. For example, the front part of the shoulders, then your triceps, and then you go over to the second head of the shoulder, which is, for example, the lateral raises, where you are standing and doing the same rep range that I recommended, and then you are then tired, and then you want to sit down and doing lateral raises. And the last part of the shoulder is rear delts, and that's like the back of the shoulder where you're doing rear delt flies, and that's just the same thing. And then you always have 2 compound movements in the beginning of the workouts of a specific muscle groups, and then you go over to isolation movements where you are, for example, been hitting your delts already. Then you go over to, for example, triceps. You can do different kinds of variation. It could be tricep push down, rope push downs, tricep bench press. And that's specifically just how you are targeting your workouts when you're trying to build more muscle mass. And yeah, by doing this, you're going to build more muscle, you're going to have a faster metabolism and get a leaner physique. What is your biggest takeaway from the video so far? Just comment below and let me know. And the fourth mistake that you're making is that you are not prioritizing your sleep before you are adding more cardio. What that specifically looks like for you ambitious men at your heaviest weight is that you're drinking coffee all day because you're just tired, and when you come back from work you are just falling asleep and you're just feeling always tired, and it frustrates you a lot. And recovery is very poor on your side because your body is constantly stressed, especially while dealing with all of these work projects, and it makes you feel like you need to, for example, not having a lot of focus. So what I always recommend that is you have 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep every single day. And how you are going to do that is that, for example, you always have a room where you're only having 2 things you're doing in that room, like your bed, that could be sleeping and having sex, and you also have for example, the curtains like black, so there's not anything lightning that is coming into your room. And also you have a cool temperature where you're able to sleep with like a t-shirt or pajamas, because it's not too hot, too cold. And you, of course, you need to have your phone inside, but you don't want to spend all your energy on looking at your phone before you go to sleep, because there's some light that comes from the phone that is making your brain active, so you are having a big trouble with sleeping. And also I always recommend that if you are trying to sleep, you are having like sleep mask and also earplugs, because that makes it easier to cancel out all the noise, then you are not being irritated when you are sleeping. And then you're also trying to maybe writing a book or reading a book or writing in your journal like 30 minutes before you go to sleep, because it's just easier for you to not think about a lot of things when you're trying to sleep, as having too many thoughts can distract you from trying to sleep. And by doing that, you're going to have more energy, you are getting better workouts, controlling your appetite, because if you are constantly having a lot of stress, you are most likely just trying to emotional eating, where you are having a lot of stress and using food as a way to de-stress yourself, and that's not very healthy. The last problem that you are having is that you are trying to diet constantly, and what you should do instead is starting out with a small calorie deficit. Let's imagine that you are trying keto diet, fasting, detoxing, low carbing, and all these things have in common that you are dieting, and you are also removing certain food groups, and that is not healthy, because you need all types of food groups in order to have a sustainable, healthy diet. For example, if you want to lose weight with, for example, high protein diets, that gives you enough protein to build more muscle and lose fat, and also 40% of your daily calories coming from carbs to give you more energy, sustainable energy throughout the day, and not having so many cravings, because you are increasing the fibers to 20 to 40 grams. And you are also not feeling a lot of cravings, because the amount of foods that you need is like 9% coming from whole foods, and the last 10% is from, for example, fast digestible carbs, where you're just indulging in something that you really need and crave. And that makes it easier to stick to this calorie deficit of 300 or 500 calories. I always recommend that you're starting off with a 300 calorie deficit in the first 2 weeks, and then you're trying to stick to that. It's not like the biggest problem, and then eventually you want to introduce cardio into your workouts of 3-4 cardio sessions of 20 minutes, and then you're sticking to that, and you also have a heart rate of 120, because if there's some resistance on the cardio machines, you are able to burn fat even faster. And then you are not always on a, for example, a diet where you feel like you're on and off like for 3 months and then you're off. So it's not, you need to make it like a lifestyle change, because that's easier for you to maintain that and eating foods that you really enjoy, so you don't feel like you are missing out on anything. And then being more consistent by following this calorie deficit is just way easier compared to if you are feeling that you are eating foods that you don't really enjoy, like you're always eating rice, you're eating tuna, broccoli. Most people just don't like that, and that's why I always use something that's called my protein premium subscription, where I am putting in the stats of my calorie deficit and my macros, and then eventually I'm having 2-3 meal plans, maybe 2, where I am switching between the amount of foods that I am eating, so it's different when I don't eat the same things, and it's easy to have my motivation higher, and you are losing fat without feeling miserable and keep it off permanently. And if you want to lose the weight for good and become the most healthiest version of yourself, just like you saw with me on my client transformation in the beginning of the video, there's a link in the description and also in the comment section where you can apply for coaching with me, and we'll see if you and I are fit to work together. I look forward to talk with you and help you build a game plan.